Hello, and welcome to How I Did It, where I basically just turn on a mic and try to go over how I did certain things for either a game or we'll see what happens in the future. Today, I guess we'll kind of go over some of my character design concepts for the D stands for demon. This character, Alanis, is a secondary character that is the co-worker of our main character, Stella. And when I first was kind of coming up with her and what she would look like, my first instinct was like, oh, sassy black co-worker. And I was like, whoa, well, hold on a sec. That is a harmful racial stereotype. Let's back up and figure out why that was our first instinct, because I think it's super important as creators to recognize when we're, feeding these sort of situations as opposed to making them better. And so I was okay, let me back up and figure out my life. And what I realized is what I was really looking for, despite that being my first instinct, is something that was more of like a CCH Pounder or like a Madge Sinclair kind of character who is an older sort of educational figure, like a wise older coworker, but not like super old or anything, just like someone who's been in the business for a little bit longer and can provide some more down-to-earth perspectives. And so from there, I developed the character a little bit more. I was like, okay, so she's going to be, in her late 30s, early 40s. She's going to have a family. She's going to do this, this, and this. And sort of developed her out from there to provide a sort of, not a foil necessarily, but a complement to our main character, who, despite being very career-driven as well, is also a little more, not naive, but a little bit more unsure of herself. And so what I was doing there just now is I wanted to make sure that her physical artwork is of the same proportion as the other sprites, and I had actually made her a little bit too big. And so I use her height as like a line in that the character you were seeing there was Chihao and Chris. I know how tall they are, and I know how tall I wanted her to be in relation to them, so I just pulled those sprites up and kind of took her sketch and made sure it was the right size. Now, I like to do my initial sketches for characters. You saw me using an armature, a digital armature, which I use a lot. It kind of just a shortcut, helps me make sure I get my proportions right and I get my poses right. And then I usually do the sketch of the actual body and stuff. I do that in a couple different colors. I'll do the body in one color and then I'll come back and do skin in a different color. Rather, I'll do the body in one color and come back and do the clothes in a different color, and I'll do the hair in a different color. And having the different colors allows me to kind of see the layers a little bit better of, okay, this is in front of this, or this is behind this, or this belongs to this, and lets me just see a little bit better going forward. And what I've done for the line work for this whole game is I'm not using a solid black. I'm using it's like 2E, 2F, so it's a slightly blue, very, very, very dark gray. And it's a pen that's kind of narrow. It's just a pen I built that isn't round. It's oblong with a little bit of an angle to it. And what you see me doing for her hand is I'm using a combination of the model armature hand and then my own hand. I wish you could see me right now, because right now I would have my hand up looking at it from different angles to be like, oh, how's this gonna look? And it's funny because I have really pudgy hands, and they really are. My palm to finger ratio is not real. I think I'm a fake person sometimes. And so it's funny because my hands then will end up being a little bit sausagey, and it's just because that's my reference point, and I always have to like overcome it. But for Alanis, I was just like, I'm just gonna go with it and make it work. And of course, using the nails as a reference point to kind of show the curve of the hand. I spent some time on Reddit Lacaristas to get some of the nail shape right and figure out how I wanted to do her manicure. And that was a lot of fun. Because ideally, even though she is meant to be a slightly more powerful figure, it was very important to me to also have her be feminine. I wanted her to definitely be a character who knows what she wants, but is also very feminine in her process of doing so. Compared to Stella, who isn't quite as feminine sometimes, but also without making her girly. Like, that's a very, like, that's a very delicate balance. Okay, how do you get feminine without getting girly? And of course, I wanted to make sure she had realistic proportions. That's very important to me. I wanted to, if I'm going to make her be a, you know, young middle-aged woman, she's got to look like a young middle-aged woman, you know. It's got to work. Right now, okay, I'm watching this back. I'm thinking, so I had some problems with my, on my pen tablet, I was having some problems with, sensitivity, and I fixed them since then, but like looking at this now, I was like, oh, this was so frustrating. I actually like to taper the ends of my lines manually, like as opposed to taking a brush and then setting it up to where it tapers on its own. I like to do it manually. I don't know why, I just do. I feel like I get a better result that way. And it ends up working out pretty well. For me, at least. Like, other people probably would drive them crazy. But it ends up working out pretty well for me. And so in the development of her face, there's like this big complaint about, not complaint, but you see like people talking about like, oh, I don't know how to like draw a face that's not my own race or whatever. And I'm like, I'm white as fuck, right? And so that's not a fucking excuse. Like for me, I try to do a lot of like anthropological style of like research. Like, okay, so what are the actual physical differences between people of different ethnic and racial groups, and then how can you put that into practice in your illustration? And am I perfect? Absolutely fucking not. But it's something, it's not an excuse. And I feel what really helps is look at how people of that particular race, like if that's something that you struggle with, like I want to draw someone who's Asian, but I don't know what Asian people look like. What the fuck? But for, but like go look at how people of that race draw themselves, and you're gonna be able to see that, oh, these are what they consider the core features of their face. This is how they see themselves, this is how they interpret their facial features, and that gives you a huge perspective on like, okay, so I want to make this person look like a black person, but I don't want to be that person who's making like a racial stereotype because I'm giving them like, minstrel-esque, features. Like that's messed up. You don't want to fall into that trap, even accidentally, because I've seen that. I've seen artists who, in an attempt to be like, oh, this is a Asian character, a black character, a Native American character, like do it poorly because they're trying so hard, and it's like, dude, chill out. And so the hair, another thing I've always heard is about people who, excuse you, my cat sneezed. Another thing I've heard is like, oh, I don't know how to draw like afro hair. I don't fucking know how to draw afro hair either. Like, it's taken me a long time to learn about different hair textures. I decided that Alanis was gonna have, C2 hair, and so I looked up, okay, what does this hair texture look like? And I don't think I actually said that right. I think I picked a different hair texture. I look at my numbers again. And not only did I go like look up a specific hair texture I was thinking of, and like see how like people at salons style this hair texture. I looked at, again, Black artists and how they chose to draw the C's and D's, kinky curly hair. Because it's like, okay, they own it. They own that hair, so they know how to represent it illustratively. And I think it's very, very important to do that. Like I said, I'm not perfect, I try as best I can to represent people in a realistic way, but, I'm going to do that by looking at how the people represent themselves because they know best. And so for coloring, I know a lot of people like to do like tones first and then color over them. I've done that with other pieces that are like not for a game, but since I knew I was going to come in and do like cell shading and I was going to do like modular shading and that kind of stuff, I just color it in and then go with it. I am still struggling, and I know that there's actually there's another game, it's called A Women of Zal, and this was actually a complaint that somebody had for that game that artist was trying to figure out how to work with. And because we do tend to do black lines, the black lines on the dark skin don't always show up, and that is still something I'm trying to work with on her because I don't want to run into that problem. And I don't want to run into that problem, but I also don't want to like lighten her skin color. Like that's her skin color. I don't want to change that just to make it easier to read. So I gotta figure out a different way to make it easier to read, and that's an issue I'm still working on. And okay, so what's funny here is I have absolutely no sense of fashion whatsoever, but this character does. And so I gave her a simple sheath dress because I was like, okay, I know what a sheath dress looks like, and that looks good on everybody. Cool, and it's businessy and stuff. But then looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, just this. Even though I have no sense of fashion, I know that this, from a color and a design perspective, that this just straight wash of cream is very like boring visually looking. So I'm like, okay, I gotta add something. Okay, what do I add? What the fuck goes with a sheath dress? A belt belted in at the thinnest part of your waist. That's what they say on what not to wear. I'll go with that, and so it's fun and infuriating all at once for someone with absolutely no sense of fashion to design clothes for characters, because half the time I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Armor and stuff, hells yeah, I will armor people up one side and down the other. When it comes to actual like normal clothes for normal people, I kind of don't know what I'm doing half the time. So you fake it till you make it, my dudes. Oh, and the color swatching, I usually do it off the side in its own separate layer, and for this game, I was focusing on, my overall color scheme is more into the blue range. For another game I did, I was doing things more in an orange range. I try to pick one color that's sort of the overarching, thematic color for everything. If this game it's blue, and I'll end up going back and like putting all the sprites together side by side, especially with the backgrounds, and make sure that I'm color coordinated across everybody. But for now, like this is fine. Like this is like my first pass, and eventually I will go back and kind of figure that out in more detail. And so what I did here to kind of make the curls a little softer, and I'm probably still going to go back and play with these a little bit more, I just went through and I used an erase on the curls themselves, like 50%, something like that, so that the curls are still there, but they're not that super duper distinct. I want the feeling of curls without them being super out of place looking. And again, that's something I'm gonna have to go back and like play with a little bit more, because I'm not 100% sure if I absolutely 100% like what I ended up doing. Also, what I'm doing here is I am separating out the different parts of like her face and neck and hair, because I'm intending to move her expression. You know, she's gonna have like a neutral and a mad and a happy, whatever, but I want the hair to be able to fall in front of the face properly without having to do like partial features or whatever. Like, I don't want to have to like make the whatever. Artistically speaking, it makes more sense to have them on separate layers and layer over each other. Than in game, I layer her sprite with hair front, hair back, face, different faces. And so this is just me kind of splitting up the layers, and I have to do it with line and color because the line and color are living on different layers. And so what I'll do is I'll use layer comps to turn on what I want, where I want, and use those to export to the final, you know, files that I use. The pink nails were, I don't know, I might go back and change those something a little more elaborate, like maybe some kind of like ombre, because she feels like the kind of person who would do that. Like, she would go and get a manicure and it would be like, you know, it would be something spectacular. Also, I feel like it's a little bit too pink. Like, the color pink's a little bit too pink, so I'm probably gonna go back and adjust that to make it work a little bit better with her overall color palette. There's a little bit of a skip here, but this is me going back through when I was doing the colors on her face. She does have a deep red lip because she is wearing makeup. That is something that is going to show up in her overall color scheme. And again, that was something else that I had to like go figure out. Like, I had to go like watch makeup tutorial videos and be like, how do people wear makeup? Because I don't. Like, I absolutely do not. I wear makeup maybe once in a blue moon for very special occasions. And so it's one of those things where you have to like learn how to do it, and it's very, very peculiar. And yeah, what I did here is I messed up because I really needed to make the jewelry on a separate layer. I'm very particular about like what exists on what layer. I like everything like with the jewel, like, you know, with those earrings, like I want them to be on their own separate layer above the ear. That way, like, oh, if I decide, hey, I don't want these earrings anymore, I can just turn them off. Because those are kind of things those are the kinds of design choices I would make like very late. Oh, and this was a, so Alanis does have a daughter. Maybe a son. He's a kid. I don't know. Doesn't matter. And so I thought it would be fun to throw in one of those like super goofy like mother heart necklaces, because they're adorable and it absolutely seems like the kind of thing she would do. And so it's just a very like small character design choice that I feel informs her overall design. And so yeah, that this is a speed drawing of Alanis for the D stands for demon. I hope you got some cool insights, and I look forward to seeing you again around when we talk more about how I did things.